What's going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to tell you guys why I think the Copa Pure.1 is one of the best, if not the best, leather football boot on the market for around $220 to $230. This is the 1 month review. We are going to start with the Soleplate of this football boot. This is a fantastic Soleplate. It was originally found on the Nemesis line, which Adidas made back in 2017 and 18, I believe, and in 19, I think, as well. And this is the torsion frame Soleplate. So it's got a bunch of these half circular studs, which are fantastic for both artificial ground in here in the indoor pitches, as well as firm ground on outdoor pitches and in grass. And so I have really enjoyed playing in this Soleplate. It is super snappy. And one of the things that I think they did really well with this leather football boot is add a Soleplate that actually gives you some sort of responsiveness when you're playing in a boot that, for all intents and purposes, isn't built to be super responsive. And so it gives you this really nice underfoot feel with a fantastic amount of snapback and the ability to push off. So for me, the rating for this Soleplate on this football boot in this whole execution gets an 8 out of 10. Next, we're going to talk about the heel area. So the heel area is vastly improved over Copa Sense.1, and they've got a really nice suede liner with these absolutely lovely pads that go on the back side of each side of your Achilles. And so for me, this was a welcome scene after what happened with the Copa Sense, with those really super uncomfortable and stiff pods that were in the back. And for me, this is a really nice heel. My only complaint with this boot is there's a little bit of extra floppy material on the heel that isn't really necessarily, to be honest. I don't really notice it, but I also think it is a little bit unnecessary. There's no reason for this other than just an aesthetic thing, I guess, and it doesn't make the boot look any better or worse. So for me, this just gets knocked off a few points because I think this is a little bit lazy. The other thing that I think could be improved is this stitch on the outside allows this boot material to fray a little bit. And so we'll talk about durability in a little bit, which actually is really good. But from a heel perspective, it would have been so easy to just do the seam kind of like on the leather F50 remake. If they had done that seam where it kind of the material's folded over and onto itself, I think the heel would just look really clean and it would look a little bit better than what it does here. So for this heel area, as far as comfort, fit, lockdown, all that stuff, is a 7.5 out of 10. All right, moving on to the upper, which is, in my opinion, a huge deal on this football boot. This is what makes this football boot shine. There was a lot of controversy around this football boot when it first launched because of the addition of calfskin leather instead of kangaroo leather, and especially with this synthetic midfoot, people were really worried that, okay, calfskin, maybe it's a little bit stiffer, maybe it's not going to be as comfortable. We already didn't really like the Sense.1, so now what's going to happen with Pure.1? And I will say this upper is absolutely sensational. And I really mean that. This is probably my favorite leather upper on the market right now for what I enjoy. If I'm gonna wear a leather boot, I want something that has a really luxurious plush sensation. It doesn't have to be thick. That's not what I'm saying. So I'm not saying thick. I'm saying I want a boot that's gonna feel like a leather football boot. The Tiempo Made in Montebelluna feels like a leather boot, even though it's super thin. This is thicker than that. This is a little bit more plush feeling, more pillowy, but it still feels like a beautiful leather football boot. And for me, that's what makes the difference. And the integration of this into the fusion skin midfoot and heel area, they did a fantastic job kind of molding this all together to where when I put my foot in, I notice a little bit of stability in that midfoot because it is a synthetic material, but the softness of the forefoot and the ability of the fusion skin to kind of break in really nicely is just fantastic. And for me, this is such a comfortable boot. I mean, you can see how dirty these are. I wear these quite often if I want just a comfortable leather football boot to train in and ping in, because I really enjoy these. So for me, this upper is an 8.5 out of 10. Now let's move on to lockdown. So lockdown is actually decent in this football boot. I find that the addition of this torsion frame Soleplate from the Nemesis line, in addition to the Fusion Fit midfoot, which they've enhanced since the previous generation since 0.1, with this really lovely calfskin leather upper that's super soft. It's not going to give you speed boot lockdown. Of course, it's a leather boot, right? It's a classic leather boot, so to speak, with some new agey performance benefits to it. So for me, the lockdown has been good. There's a tiny bit of slippage in the heel area. That's totally a personal thing, though. Again, when I say, and you should always keep in mind, when reviewers say, oh, there's slippage in the heel, oh, it's uncomfortable in this area of the foot, that's because, myself included, we're talking about our feet in the boot. We don't know, we can't speak for everybody, we can't speak for all foot types. For my foot, there's a tiny bit of slippage in the heel area, and that causes just a little bit of movement inside the boot. Grip socks, really good grip socks, tend to fix this issue for me for the most part. Sometimes I do feel it a little bit, but on the regular, I don't have any issues with this. So it's gonna get knocked down a little bit of points just for that little tiny bit of slippage. And for me, this is a 7.5 out of 10 on lockdown. Now let's talk about break-in time. Break-in time was fabulous in this football boot. As you guys know, or if you don't already know, I have a really thin heel area and then a wide midfoot here, starting actually quite about where the boots are really wide. So about right there, all the way through the toe box area. So brilliant toe box break-in time because it is a leather football boot. The midfoot took a little bit of time to break in, but it wasn't bad for a football boot. The Tiempos crush my feet straight out of the box. And for me, that's why this boot, in my opinion, is above the Tiempo. We'll talk about competition in just a sec, but break-in time for these honestly was really spectacular. I got in them in one session, broke them in for about half an hour, took them off, unlaced them, put a different pair of boots on, put these back on for the end of the session to try and train in them a little bit, and they were perfect. So really no issues with break-in time as far as I'm concerned, especially with my kind of abnormal shaped foot or wide feet. So for me, this gets an 8.5 out of 10 for break-in time. All right, durability and build quality. Now, one of the things that is probably my biggest complaint with this boot is the tongue. And the tongue hasn't ripped, it's not a durability issue, but the fact that this build quality, this tongue is super plush, super comfortable, but it moves side to side like this, so I always have to readjust the tongue area, and that, from a build quality perspective, is really annoying to me. The build quality of this boot, though, you can see scuff marks all over this upper material, and there is absolutely zero separation anywhere in this boot. And so for me, yes, a little bit of fraying as I talked about in the heel area, but overall this boot really performs well, super durable. I've worn this on AG and FG and it's had zero issues. But again, only two minor complaints. So for me, this is an 8 out of 10 as far as durability and build quality. Shape and fit of this boot is sensational. I wouldn't say it's sensational. It's not the best on the market in my opinion, but it fits my foot really, really well. So it's gonna get pretty high marks on this one. It fits true to size. This is a 9 US and it fits my toe absolutely perfect. Lengthwise is great, and then it has a lot of adjustability when it comes to width with the lacing system. I really enjoy this boot over the Plus variation for that reason. I tend to prefer laced football boots. You guys, if you don't know that already, I just tend to prefer laced. So for me, fit and comfort of this boot, fit and the feel and the sizing and stuff is really fantastic. For me, it gets an 8.5 out of 10. All right, so now let's talk about the competition of this boot. As I mentioned, Tiempo Legend 9, you have the New Balance 442, you have some of the Diadora Brasilia boots, I believe, which I've reviewed one of, and then you've got Copa Pure Pluses, and then Puma King Platinum, which I haven't seen actually on sale in a long time. We're not even gonna talk about those boots because they are horrific. They are really bad. Do not buy those. For me, this is, I would say, the top of the list as far as performance and comfort. Tiempo is a fantastic football boot. It does have kangaroo leather all around the upper, so that is one benefit. If you're looking for a complete kangaroo leather upper football boot, that's the one to buy. The Tiempo is a great option, and it's got that knit material in the midfoot. This, to me, though, marries a more responsive sole plate with a softer leather upper than the Tiempo, plus a synthetic or faux leather midfoot that really allows you to feel like you're wearing a leather football boot without it being carrying water, overstretching, all that stuff. So for me, this is the top of the list as far as current non-exclusive, so we're talking like Adler, Mizuno, like some of these Asics, like some of these really, really amazing, actually I'd put Asics in this list as well. 442, sorry, not 442, X-Fly 4s are in this list as well, and X-Fly 4s to me are probably on par with this. They're lighter than this boot. The leather quality is excellent as well, kangaroo leather upper. This one is definitely super plush feeling, and I think this sole plate is a little more responsive. So honestly, I'm probably gonna pick this one over the Asics, but for me, those are kind of the top two right now of like leather football boots. Again, we're not talking about the exclusive super expensive ones from Japan like the Adler and the Mizuno, so just be aware those aren't part of my list. This and the Asics are on top of my list as far as the competition goes. Excellent execution on Adidas's part. Okay, overall performance for the Copa Pure.1. This is a really, really good football boot. I love these. For me, leather boots tend to be a little bit less on the performance end of things just because I tend to prefer something that's a little more locked in. I love knit boots. I do like leather boots a lot as well, but knit boots tend to be kind of my favorite. That's just the feel I like. And so for me, the overall performance of this boot, given everything else on the market and given the addition of this Nemesis sole plate and sort of the fusion skin in the midfoot that really locks you in, this is a 7.5 out of 10 for performance. Overall, for the Copa Pure.1, this is a really good football boot. As I mentioned before in the competition section, this to me is very much on par, if not half a step higher than the Asics X-Fly 4, which if you haven't seen my review and 1 month review of those, I love those boots. I wear them often, I absolutely adore them. These are absolutely on par with that, if not even perform a little bit better from just a locked-in sensation. I like some of the aspects of the X-Fly 4 a little bit more, especially in the heel area. I like the heel better, and the way that the sole plate kind of brings you forward is amazing. But the responsiveness of this sole plate, the plush, absolutely beautiful sensation you get from this calfskin leather upper is really incredible. So for me, this is a very, very good option, and in my opinion, crushes the competition. If you're somebody who doesn't have access to the Asics boot, I would say this is the best leather football boot on the market for basically under $300. If you're gonna pay $300 for a pair of football boots, fair enough, go with a Mizuno product or an Adler product, those are amazing. But these perform really well, they're comfortable, they break in well, they don't hold that much water in rainy conditions, and I have really enjoyed wearing these. I'm going to keep these in my collection because not only are they all white and they're absolutely beautiful, but they're just a sensational pair of football boots. So that is an 8.5 out of 10 for my overall rating. This is a great football boot, and I genuinely mean that. They are really good. They fit my feet really well. Again, keep in mind, this is all subjective. This is all my opinion based on my testing and stuff. And over the last month, I have really enjoyed wearing these, and I pick these over a lot of other football boots on the market. That's it for the video, guys, of the 1 month review of the Copa Pure.1. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. I sure enjoyed wearing these football boots the last month or two now, and would definitely pick up a pair for yourself. If I can find some, I'll leave some links down in the description box below where you guys can purchase your own pair, especially if you're in the US or I believe like Oceania, so New Zealand, Aussie markets. I'll see if I can get those, and for Europe guys as well, I'll see if I can do that. So just look in the link in the description. Hopefully I can find some links for you guys, and we'll go from there. But yeah, fantastic boot. Pick up your own pair. They are definitely a super comfortable boot for, I would say, most foot types, and absolutely fantastic. Like the video if you got value from it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.